Hello everyone, how you doing? Oh my god, we already have, what is that, 12 plus 15, it's 27 viewers right now? Okay, I think that's the most people that we've had on a stream at the get-go ever. So, hi everyone, hope you're doing good. Hey there, Couldn't Give a Fuck, Shiniest, The David, Sagrado, Chad Franklin, Shyness, and Radio Dwarf. Voice jump scare, is it too loud? I'm kind of peeking. I'm gonna turn it down a little. Let me know if the levels are weird, okay? I had to move my microphone because it was like super far in the corner, and I realized it was probably picking up more of my room than it was my voice. So yeah, just let me know if the audio quality's weird, alright? The title said fixing an awful Voxel engine, why not work on Zephyr instead? It is Zephyr, it's just that Zephyr is awful. I didn't work on the project for like a month. I guess this is a bit of backstory for the title. I went to GDC and I've been working a lot on a commercial project with a business partner for a while recently. And so I haven't had much time to actually work on Zephyr, and I spent about a month away from it, and when I came back I was like, what the hell have I done here? A lot of stuff just felt like egregiously jank, and I was just like, okay, I don't wanna sit back and stare at this anymore. Like, the UVs of all of the blocks were completely screwed. And so we fixed that last stream, and it was great, honestly. Like, it was really nice to resolve a problem that had like existed for a long time, as opposed to just, you know, adding more problems to the mix. And today I want to do a little bit more of that. I think my focus, which hopefully shouldn't take more than a couple minutes at the beginning here, is I want to fix the frustum culling. As you can see, as I change the FOV here, something about it is very wrong. It looks like it's frustum culling, but I actually think it's including a lot more chunks that don't need to be rendered at my default zoom level, just judging by how the chunks are going in and out as I zoom. And then after that, I'd like to take a look at improving the structure generation so they don't get cut off at chunk borders, which might be a little bit longer of a process. I'm missing so many chat messages. Alright, I just wasn't paying attention when you started talking, it makes sense. Still better than Minecraft in most ways. I appreciate that. There's a lot still to go. Actually, there is something that I was watching a Minecraft video recently, and I was really inspired by a comment that the YouTuber said, and I'm interested to talk about that in a minute. Just let me catch up on chat. Dang, I missed GDC this year, how was it? It was my first time going, so I don't really have a good reference frame for how it is compared to normal GDC, but I had an absolutely excellent time there. You know, like, it's a big financial investment to go, especially if you don't live in the San Fran area. Like, I live in Canada. We took a, like, 1,600 kilometer road trip, which is like 1,100 miles, down to San Fran in a car from, like, around Vancouver. Which is like just above the American border. And so it was my first time that far into the States. It was my first time at a big conference like that, and it was honestly really excellent. Like, it made me really happy to be surrounded by devs and people like me for once. You know, it can be very isolating. Like, my city that I live in has a very, very small dev scene, so it can feel a little bit isolating here sometimes. And so being around so many like-minded people felt so cool. It was great. I know, I just don't think it's awful. Do not self-hate, that's my thing. Oh, that's fair. That is fair. I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek about it. I mean, I am very proud of everything that's been done here. It's more so just that, like, if I can improve it, I should improve it, right? Like, I don't want to just, like, leave it janky when I can fix it, and then that'll make everyone happier. Christ, that's probably bigger than my country. Yeah, no, it was, like, California's about 2/3 down America, and we started at the top, so it was a long drive. Like, it was about 1/3 the width of Canada, which has encouraged me to probably try doing a road trip at some point, because I had a lot of fun driving. I went possibly way too fast on the highways, but everyone else was doing it too, so I don't feel guilt. My first time was 2024. Driving is crazy. Yeah, it was a lot. But yeah, we wouldn't have ever gone if we didn't have like a business reason to be there. Like my business partner and I were actually starting a commercial project that isn't Zephyr. It's a smaller project to like actually dip our toes in the serious industry right now. It's called Stardust Frontier, and I'm excited to show it off at some point soon. But that's why we ended up going to GDC. But despite that, I met so many cool people that were also doing like 3D graphics and voxel stuff. I met someone that was making like absolutely incredible voxel technology, and I keep gushing about it every time the topic comes up, so I'm gonna try and tone it down so I don't spend like a million years talking about it. But like they were doing some crazy stuff with displacement mapping to like effectively get like a completely micro voxel aesthetic, but like with just really low poly geometry, and it was incredible to look at. Nef 2019 says, going back to old code is always a pain. It sure is. To fix the UVs, I had to go into like the mesh processor, because like these are all just like GLTF meshes, right? And then it processes them using a bunch of stuff to basically turn them into faces so they can be optimized and greedy meshed and stuff. And going back and trying to understand how my greedy mesher like algorithm even works was a lot. It was more difficult than I'd like to admit. But I was staring at it and I was just like, oh no, I've got to figure this out. And I realized I could mostly ignore it, so yeah. Okay, so let's quickly go over the outline for the stream. So today, I want to fix the frustum culling, which is, you know, clearly a little bit broken. It should be, so the only thing that's changing here as I do this is I'm changing the field of view. The frustum culling is being based on the field of view, otherwise we wouldn't see the chunks changing whether they're loaded or not as I do this, but it seems to be almost inversely affected by it. Like the field of view is rising as I zoom out here, which means that it should be rendering more chunks, but it's actually rendering less, which is leading me to believe that there's a lot of overhead. And in fact, I'm pretty sure when I've taken screenshots with RenderDoc, I've sometimes seen chunks behind me being rendered, which is obviously not ideal. Especially when I'm trying to get very large render distances in the game, it's quite a problem if it's, you know, generating or rendering a lot of extra chunks that aren't actually supposed to be visible. And then after that, we're probably going to go over fixing the structure generation finally. You know, this was going to be the topic of a couple streams ago before I got sidetracked by fixing bugs. But it's kind of important for the structures that they don't end up getting cut off at chunk borders like this, so we'll handle that soon. And then, oh yeah, I guess one other short little thing that I made before the stream started is I wanted to test if biomes were working. This is actually directed by me figuring out that, oh wait, I think trees are slowing down the generation like a ton. Like, you know, I recently opened up the game and chunk generation was taking like 5 times the normal duration of time. And that kind of freaked me out, because I thought, oh no, the only thing that's changed is the trees, and now like chunk generation and mesh generation are super slow. What's wrong with them though? And at first I thought it was these branches, because they're very like complicated. Their models are like connected models and stuff, and they have leaves and stuff. But then I was thinking about it more and I was like, but every grass block has connected little border textures. We might also fix this. The rotation's off on this for some reason, but you know, they have border textures, and those are all separate planes, right? So in theory, that shouldn't be that much more complicated than these branches, or I mean, the branches should be that much more complicated than that. And so I tried disabling the trees, and you know, it wasn't any faster, and I was like, oh no, that's not good. The trees clearly aren't the problem, right? And then I eventually realized, oh wait, no, it's because I have, I was running it in debug mode and had sanitize address on. So crisis averted, there was actually nothing wrong with my code. I was just running a debugger basically the whole time, and it was slowing everything down. So currently we're running it without the debugger, and like placing blocks is way, way, way faster than it was before. But I guess when I did that, I realized, hold on a minute, the game kind of looks really nice without trees everywhere. Like, you know, trees are usually just like constant right now since we added them, and they look really pretty, but I was kind of getting annoyed by how like busy the horizon line was. So I was like, okay, we have the biome system. I've not used it in forever. Let's try making a super simple biome. So all I did was just, I made a biome called forest. I changed the generation parameters so it's slightly different, made the grass a slightly different color, and then made it so trees only spawn there. And honestly, I think it's really cool to see the biome system at play. Like, you can see there's trees all over here and not over here. Some of them are on top of this mountain, which is really cool. But like, you know, you can actually see that it is generating biomes properly, which is exciting. Some advice I've seen is to temporarily configure the frustum culling to cull using smaller than the actual current frustum. For example, one half of it, then draw a box of the smaller frustum on screen. You're talking about like for debugging the frustum culling, right? To see if things disappear when they should. Just dropping in briefly, have a good stream. Thanks for dropping by. Yeah, no, that's a good idea. I mean, I'll debug with that method if it isn't just like a simple math problem. I haven't actually looked at this yet. It could literally be that I'm just using the wrong number. So we'll take a look at it first, and then we'll do some more in-depth debugging if we need to. Speaking of chunk borders, how do you remove the faces on the chunk borders? Do you load the connecting rows of neighbor chunks in the cull phase? That's a good question. Basically, so when I'm generating the world, I effectively generate one chunk beyond what is visibly rendered, and then as I'm meshing the chunks, I pass in the neighboring block faces of the neighboring chunk. So like, I don't send in the whole chunk for all 6 of the neighboring chunks, but I just send in like the column of blocks that is bordering the chunk. So then I am able to tell what's occluded there. It's not an ideal solution because it does mean there's data that's not being rendered, which is always an uncomfortable thing, in my opinion. Like, I don't like the idea that there is terrain out there that I've spent the computing energy to create that is not yet being drawn. But as I get further into like the level of detail stuff I want to do, that data is going to be useful, so I'm just sort of accepting that for now. There is also an optimization which I haven't done yet, which I want to do, which is that like currently we need all 6 neighbors to identify like, okay, should like, say this is the edge of the chunk, I need to know what this chunk is to know if this chunk should render these faces, right? And that's the same for like, if this was also a chunk border, I need to know what this chunk is to render these faces. But an optimization that I actually spoke to someone in person about a long time ago, and I have just been sitting on doing it for a while now, is you can basically make it so that each chunk is responsible for rendering the positive faces of each block on like the chunk borders. So for example, if we just make like a little toy chunk here, if we go like, wait, dirt is the wrong block for this, it has code that makes it behave weird. So if this is one entire chunk here, then instead of making it so that this one chunk renders all of these faces on all 6 of the sides, you can instead make it so that, like this chunk, say this is positive X, positive Z, and positive Y, it only renders the positive X, Z, and Y faces, and then the neighboring chunk over here that's empty would render the positive X face of this block, and this would render the positive Z, and then this chunk down here would render the positive Y. And so what you can do with that is, then you only need to send the adjacency data for the chunk in the positive axis of each direction. Which means instead of sending 6 chunks, like 6 neighboring chunks, you only need to send 3. And that scales as you're rendering larger regions. Like, for example, I have some level of detail stuff that isn't currently active, but the way that it works is it basically meshes a larger region of chunks at once. So I think it starts at like a 2x2x2 region, which means that you've got 24 neighboring chunks, because you have to have the 2x2 on each edge. And that could be brought down to 12 if, you know, I was doing that method, which would make things a lot nicer, because there'd be less data that needs to be encoded. The slowest part of the mesh generation is cloning the chunk data, or using mutexes. I don't remember exactly which method I use. I've gone back and forth, and neither of them are ideal, because, you know, mutexes are unreliable. Sometimes you can get really bad lag spikes because a different thread is hanging on a resource, and while you can try to reduce the duration that it's holding a resource down to, like, what's absolutely necessary, you're still now having the overhead of checking atomic values all the time. But if you're doing copying, that's a massive amount of data, which can, you know, take up just as much time on the main thread as it's copying the memory, because it needs to copy the entire region before it can continue mutating it. So, you know, the ideal solution is to have less data to transfer between threads, and so that's what I'd like to do with that sort of positive axis thing. Yeah, though, let's take a quick look at the frustum culling code. This code, we're gonna take a look at the blame here, because I bet it's not been touched for the most part. Hold on. No, that's not what I want. Blame... Toggle... Why don't I know what it is? Show blame... Toggle line blame. Nope, that didn't work. What is the thing that shows me the blame on the left? Like the split view? Oh yeah, Cobalt Core OST again. I love the Cobalt Core OST. It's so good for like focusing. I don't know. It makes me very happy. Why can't I look at the blame? This is so sad. Hold on. Yeah, I don't... Huh. Yeah, I don't know where to show that. But anyways, I guess I can just show the line blame. Like, see, the majority of this code was edited 3+ years ago. There's like a few formatting changes from like changing some types and stuff here and there, but most of it was quite a while ago. So yeah, we're gonna have to take a look at that. Are you able to get decent compile time with GLM? Honestly, I don't know if GLM's the problem. I don't get very good compile times in general. I use a lot of caching, like I use CMake and it caches the non-changed files automatically. And I try to put as much of the internals of stuff in the source files as opposed to the header files. And, you know, it seems like it works okay. A complete rebuild takes around 3 minutes, it seems. And then, you know, regular changes usually take around 15 seconds to actually, like, iteratively build. But sometimes if I edit a file that's depended on by a lot of other files, it just goes crazy, and there's not much I can do about it, because C++ is kind of a mess. But hey, at least it's not Rust, right? Okay, so let's look at this. So I'm gonna pull up an article that I think I originally learned the frustum culling from. I've just got it open on my other monitor here. Okay, let's take a look at this. So, we're calling... Where's set points used? Let's see, Shift F12 goes to references. Okay, that... What am I actually looking for here? So, we've got in frustum, which I assume is what's being used for checking if chunks are supposed to be rendered. Yep, that's correct. So right there you can see if we're calling, if not frustum.inFrustum, then we skip rendering a chunk, right? Which means that this is the actual check, and it checks for each of the planes if the plane's distance to whatever this is less than 0, return false. So we'll have to look at that. Just lurking hope it's going okay? Yeah, no, it's going great. I mean, we just started here, so I'm just kind of digging into the frustum culling code, but I'm not too worried about this. I think it's going to be fine. Okay, so if the plane's distance to get vertex point, which takes a vector, and a normal, and then it takes the upper bound if the normal's positive, it looks like. So this is pulling... Interesting. I have no idea what the point is here with this. I guess it's like... Wait, where is the normal? Oh, plane.norm. Okay, I understand, I think. So basically, what's happening here is this is trying to check if a bounding box is in the frustum, and it's using the normal of the frustum plane to choose which point on the bounding box it's checking, so I assume it's trying to check the most interior point of the bounding box, which makes sense to me, hopefully. And then we have an infrustum for a box, which just does it with the points. And we also have an infrustum for the point, which just checks if the distance to the point is less than 0. I believe the reason that we're checking the sign of the distance effectively is because these are like oriented planes that have a normal direction. And so like if the plane is here and this is forwards, then this would be like 5, but this would be like -5. And if this plane represents an edge of the camera, and we're only supposed to see what's in here, then we want it all to be inside, right? So I guess let's take a look at, so get distance is done here, which is just distance. The hell is distance? Hold on. What are you? That is something in the plane. It has a normal and a distance, and then a set points. Normal becomes the triangle normal of the 3 points here, which are conveniently just named vector 1, vector 2, vector 3. I assume, okay, hold on. Just like trying to work this out with my brain. So the job here is that we're creating a bunch of planes, which are going to represent the edges of the camera. I guess, like, here's a visual, right? So we'd have, like, plane 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so these are probably 3 points which define the plane, because you only need 3 points to define a quadrant, or a plane, I guess. You know, as long as it is planar, then 3 points are enough to completely define its position and orientation. So getting the normal here is telling us the direction that it's facing, and then the distance is going to be the dot product of the normal and a vector. Not entirely sure what's going on there. Okay, so I'm just checking. Okay, so when we set the frustum planes, when we set the internals of the frustum culling, if we go to references of this, we are calling that when the viewport is updated with the field of view, the ratio, the near clip and the far clip. Sure, that's all normal and good. Why is this a negative? Oh, that's an ortho matrix. Got it. What is near clip actually defined to? 0.1? Sure, that's fine. So that's setting the camera's internals, which is just storing this stuff. Then it's taking the field of view times the near distance over 2, then the ratio, then the field of view times the far distance over 2, and the ratio. Okay, so this is trying to compute the size of the near plane and the far plane, which are the frustum planes that are going to be, like, close to the camera. So theoretically, this should be exactly the size of the far plane at the far plane. I'm trying to think if there's a way to feasibly debug that. Because basically, I guess we could just like, Because effectively what should be happening here is, if this is correct, then this should be exactly half the size. So like if the mouse is here in the middle of the screen, this should be this height projected into the camera space. So like, you know, if the far plane or the near plane is like 1 pixel away from the camera or 1 unit away, then it's however tall it would need to be if a plane was at that 1 unit away position to occupy the entire screen. Which makes sense. And I'm assuming that that's fine. I'm gonna confirm something. So looking at this guide here, we are computing, so the sign distance to a plane is dot normal point minus distance. Huh. So that's kind of the opposite of the calculation we have here. I assume that's just because this is running it in like a different like reference frame, different coordinate system, but let's take a quick look and see if this changes anything. It might just make nothing render at all. We'll see. I think it's making nothing render at all. Yep, okay. Well, I guess let's find out where they use get signed distance to plane. They use it... Oh, wow, okay. I'm not sure this is the best example. Hold on. Frustum culling implementation. Because, like... I don't know why I didn't expect this to be mathy, but I didn't expect this to be mathy. Okay, I might look into this further off stream, because I am woefully out of date on my matrix algebra, and this stuff looks like a lot. I mean, I guess, like, yeah, this is... So this is generating the planes, right? Basically... Right, because the planes... Okay, hold on. I'm kind of understanding this. So the idea is that each of these planes is going to be oriented to look at the edges of the camera, right? So we're creating this plane here, and its first point is the near top right position, then the second one is the near top left position, then the third one is the far top left position, which means, like, if we're imagining that the camera is a camera, then the first point is, like, here, here, and then here, in, like, that direction, which should make a plane that matches the top bound of the camera. And I'm assuming that because we are, in fact, frustum culling something, you know, like, the frustum culling algorithm is working at least a little bit, then we do have the fundamental math right, we're just getting the angle wrong. Because, like, all of these make sense, right? So, like, that's the top plane. Then near bottom left, near bottom right, far bottom right, that's the bottom plane. Then near top left, near bottom left, and far bottom left, that's the left plane. Then near bottom right, near top right, far bottom right is the right plane. Then near top left, near top right, near bottom right... Hold on. So near top left, near top right, and then near bottom right... Okay, that's the near plane, and then this is the far plane. Okay, so these are our planes, and the calculation looks fine for them, I think. And then our code for checking if we're within the frustum also looks fine. The only thing I wonder is maybe if this is the problem. Let's get distance with, like, the vertex P. And then, so that leaves us with basically just, is the field of view right? Like, if we go FOV equals 30, we just hard code it, then it should give us, like, a very constrained field of view for about a 30-degree angle, right? So if I, like, zoom the camera out, yeah, so this is a fixed field of view. This is not, like, changing based on the camera zoom now, and it's at 30 degrees, which seems... So 30 degrees is going to have us zooming, like, a lot in, right? But this is quite far out. Let's take a look at, like, if we make it really high, like 120. That's the highest field of view that most gamers will go, because they're crazy and like Quake Pro. I don't know, I can't do it. Alright, so if we look at it now, yes, this is quite constrained, which is interesting, because if we actually zoom out to that field of view, it should be wider, right? So it's almost like it's applying inversely. So if we look at the field of view, where is it being used? It's being used to compute the near and far height by taking the tangent of the field of view. So... Oh wait, these are also... I'm typing these in degrees. And tangent's gonna be in radians, right? So... Let's try that again, but like, properly. So let's set this to radians. That could actually be the problem. It might be that I'm passing these values in as degrees, but we'll find out. So, we're in radians now, we're in the right units, and we're showing a 30-degree field of view, which as you can see is quite constrained, but that kind of makes sense, right? If you're at 30 degrees, you'd be quite zoomed in like this, right? Now if we set this to 120 degrees in radians, we should get a much more zoomed out view. Hopefully. Okay, so it's rendering, and if we zoom out really far, it's rendering a little bit outside of my reference frame, but honestly not that much. I would expect it to be more out of my reference frame if it was going to be at 120. Sure, let's set it to like, what is my actual field of view? Hold on. So, it looks like, if I go to find all references, we go to set internals, field of view here, that field of view is defined, no. This field of view is defined here as 80 degrees. So if I set this to 60 degrees, we should be able to see a little bit of points where there are chunks that should be inside the frustum, but aren't. I'm not quite seeing anything. Like, I can see if I zoom out, because it's not reactive right now. It's almost like it's like overcompensating by a lot. Because like, let's try setting it to like 20 degrees, right? So this is like assuming a really, really, really low field of view, right? Okay, so we're still seeing a lot of terrain. Whereas if we were actually to go make our field of view 20, this is gonna like really hurt my brain. But if we're actually to go make the field of view 20, it's going to be like really, really constrained. So what is going on here? Because this is half the near height, half the far height. Does the camera have any internals other than these? No. Okay, wait, why did that not set anything? Hold on. I think I know why. I'm pretty sure this is actually in the player code. Yeah. The field of view is defined here. It's overriding the actual game's default value. So let's run that and update it. Okay. So very shortly here, we should be able to see the actual field of view as like 20, which is gonna suck. And then we should be able to see, I think, that we're actually rendering a lot of chunks that are outside of that frustum. Oh god, it takes so long. Okay, we're zoomed like way in. Not very comfortable. I'm gonna zoom out here with the zoom key. Okay, so everything that we want to see is in view. Let's drag this in closer to the actual view. So this is the actual view. Let's zoom out and get a chunk Yeah, so that's not being rendered. And that's just out of view, so that actually makes a lot of sense, right? Hey there, Bacon, how you doing? So, that actually does kind of look like it's working, right? So let's try, I guess, increasing it to, like, 50. And then, I guess we'll also need to set this... No, wait. We'll need to set this one over here. Wait, this is already at 50. Wait, what? Hold on, wait. No, it's because I just changed that. I'm having a moment right now. Okay, now they're both set to 50. Okay. So... once this loads, so this is a 50 field of view. I'm gonna zoom out slightly. And let's get something clipped right there, yeah. Then align this with, like, the actual camera view. Yeah, see, that's a lot of extra space. It's almost like the field of view is just influencing it a little too much. But at the same time, like, why does it kind of go outwards when we increase the field of view? Like, even if we assume... So, like, looking at all this math, it looked like it was right. The field of view should be increasing as we are, like, zooming out and zooming in, the base behavior of the game. Which means that it should be making these planes larger, because the near and far height will increase, right? Like, I guess let's look at, like, where's my calculator? Let's go, tangent. I guess I need, like, can I do this in my calculator? No, that's so sad. Okay, 80 degrees to radians. So if I go tangent 1.3962634, it's 5.67. And if I do 130 degrees to radians, and we go tan 2.26892803. Oh! It's a negative number. Huh. Okay. That's very interesting. Hold on. So that's clearly the wrong calculation then. I'm looking up Stack Overflow. Okay, so we have... So this has... Okay, the internet is saying that this is the calculation, which is 2 times the tangent of the FOV, and then this stuff is just converting it to radians, times math.pi over 180. Over 2, though? Like, hold on. That division by 2 is an extra division by 2. Then we're multiplying by 2 outside of this. So let's try that. So if we're multiplying by 2 out here, and then we take the FOV and divide it by 2, and then multiply it by the distance. And I guess let's keep testing at 50 and 50. Because, yeah, it looks like the issue might just be that I'm calculating the size of the near plane wrong. What toolchain do you use? LLVM/Clang or GCC? I'm currently using Clang. I think. Wait, or am I using GCC? I don't know. I'm using CMake. Yeah, I'm using Clang. Alright, let's zoom out here. Let's get a piece that's culled right there. So that's like still kind of far away, but like I can understand, like I could theoretically see, because that's like a wall. I guess actually the only way that I could do this really properly is if we had a completely chunk-aligned block, right? Do I have code for that? Hold on. We have the... No, we don't. We should have a command for that. For selecting stuff, but, okay. Sure, I'm gonna assume that's actually okay, and let's just try... Let's try here, if I stop overriding this, and set this back to 80. Let's see if it's actually computing the field of view properly now. Because I think it might have literally just been that I was doing the wrong math to get the height of the near and far planes. Which would make sense. That would justify what we were seeing. Okay, so I'm gonna let the world load, and now if I zoom out, okay, we're continuing to see the whole world on the camera. I know nothing about coding, but I know a lot about hair, and girl, yours is so perfect. Thank you so much. I always feel really self-conscious about my hair when I go onto streams. I find like I get the worst luck where it just looks completely flat a lot of the time, but thank you. I'm glad you like it. Alright, it looks like we're working. I guess the question is like, are we going over though? So let's do a little thing here, and we're gonna go FOV times equals 0.5. So we should see exactly half the field of view that we should now on the frustum plane. So effectively, we should roughly see about the inner half of the screen should be completely rendered. Which, so, I think that's actually relatively correct. And you're probably looking at this saying like, Ari, what the hell are you talking about? Like, it clearly zooms out as we go out here. But the problem is that we have to assume that the nearest point to the camera on the chunk is within view when we're computing the frustum, or when we're checking if a chunk intersects with the frustum. And these chunks are not like perfectly full of blocks, right? So there's like a lot of excess space that we kind of assume is full of blocks when we're doing the check to see if it intersects. So like the point that I'm seeing here is that it is growing. Like the region is growing, but it's kind of being scaled. I don't know. It kind of feels a bit wrong though, doesn't it? Like, hold on, I guess let's go over to, let's just take the entirely normal game. We'll build it, and then we'll run it in RenderDoc, take a snapshot, and see if at normal field of view it looks right. Alright, so we're here, and first I'm gonna take just like a completely normal screenshot, and then I'm gonna take one that's really zoomed out. So I'm just gonna wait a sec. Is that done rendering? It looks like it. Alright. Oops. My keyboard has a music mode, and the key for it is right next to the snapshot key. Okay. There we go, there's one snapshot. And now let's... Whoops. We'll zoom out a bunch. And then we'll take another one. Okay, I think those are good. So let's quit the game and inspect these. So... Oh, hold on. So here's one. And it's kind of difficult to show all of, or like to test this. My keyboard has a piano mode. It's a really, really horrible sounding piano mode. Listen to these horrible sounds. It's, my keyboard's really weird. It's the ZSA Moonlander. And it just does like a little gimmick. They added a PC speaker to it, and you can bind a key to turn it into a piano, where each of the keys, based on its scan code, makes a different sound. I just have it on as a gimmick. I think it's really charming, but, you know, it's kind of horrible. Okay, let's... Whoa. Okay. What is happening here? Oh, I'm confused. Arc ball. Okay, there's the camera, right? And we'll just look at it in profile and see if anything goes grossly outside of it. No, it resets the view every time? Oh no. Oh, it's also very slow to load. Huh. Alright, fine. We'll just kind of browse through here and see if there's anything that doesn't look like it's in the screen. Okay, wait. This one... all of these so far are actually in the screen. Although, I have to admit, it's kind of weird. Oh yeah, these are just really tiny chunks in the distance. Right, got it. So... yeah, on first glance, I'm not seeing many chunks here that are rendering, or any at all, that are rendering outside of the viewing frustum. Beep boop bop. Yeah, it looks like all of these are being rendered properly. Let's take a look at these ones. Oh, wait, did I see one that actually wasn't rendering right? Okay, these ones aren't rendering in the frustum. Oh! Okay, they're up there. Let's look at the textures. So those are rendering genuinely out of the frustum. I guess the question is, like, how far out of the frustum is it? It doesn't look too far. Hey there, people. How you doing? I think it's mostly fine, because that was like a small chunk, right? So a part of it could be in the frustum. Okay, so I'm gonna clear that. This is very robust, you know, scientific evaluation here. Now let's just quickly look at this one, where the field of view is significantly out more. So ideally what we do not want to see is a bunch of stuff that's outside of the frustum here. I mean, I think that, like, simply the fact that there are less meshes being rendered is definitely encouraging here. Like, there's only about 2,500 that are being meshed here. That's a lot less than usual, so... that's a good sign. I don't like that that one's being meshed. That does not look great. I mean, almost all of these are in the frustum. I keep, like, finding outliers, but they're always close to it, right? Like, there's never anything that's just, like, super far away, which means that it could just be the fact that we're overcompensating. Yeah, they're always, like, within a reasonable distance of the frustum, which does make me feel like it is working properly, hopefully. So, yeah, I think we're gonna call that probably fixed. Because, like, at the very least, you know, it definitely looks like it's working when I zoom in and out now, which was not the case beforehand. If I zoom in really far, is that gonna contradict what I was thinking? Like, if I zoom in, like, super close... no, it's still rendering exactly what's on screen. And if I zoom out really far, and then go to upside down mode, yeah, no, it still looks good. Okay. I'm calling that probably sorted out. It looks like it's fine. So yeah, let's commit that. Successful job done, yeah. Fix far plane size calculations, or fix frustum plane size calculations. Probably. Let's give it a bug. Okay. Alright. So, okay, if we've done that, then we have a choice, okay? We could go and work on making the structures work right, or I could mess around a little bit with an idea that I've been having for a while now that I honestly think could be really cool. And to talk about what that is, I kind of need to give some background, okay? So, obviously this game is inspired by Minecraft, that's not a huge surprise. And I have had a long history of, building both in vanilla and in modded, and I have to say, I do very much wish that we could have fucking vertical slabs, The trees on the chunk borders? Okay. Yeah, that might be something that we do, because it is kind of fucked. But yeah, so vertical slabs, right? They are something that it's kind of crazy to me that Mojang hasn't put in vanilla yet. So my planned solution for doing like custom sort of like stairs and slabs and stuff, I think I do have like a cobblestone slab item right now, yeah, but that's just like a hard-coded block. My idea is that each of these like quarter-size segments, like this volume that's like half the block's length on each side, should be able to be individually removed and put back so that you can effectively chisel a block into whatever like slab or stair shape that you want. And so I guess like that's kind of the plan that I've been thinking about for a while, but I've also been thinking about like decoration blocks and being able to like place things in a more kind of like, or in a less constrained way than Minecraft. And I think I have a really interesting system that like should probably work. So like imagine like flower pots or item frames or whatever in Minecraft. They're all constrained to the block grid, which gives you not very much flexibility as to where you're actually placing them. So, and then, if you will, imagine Valheim. If you've ever played Valheim before, you know that it has, you can basically place like structures everywhere. You can place like individual little beams and stuff at any point and decoration objects anywhere. And it has a grid that it operates on by default, but you can press Alt, I think, to stop snapping stuff to the grid and rotate it and like move it precisely. And so my thought is, okay, blocks should remain blocks. I think it's important that like most of the stuff you're building is on the block grid so that you don't end up getting like complete decision paralysis as to where you're placing every single thing. And decorative objects by default should also be on blocks, right? So like if you're trying to place like a flower pot or a painting or whatever, it should align to the block grid by default. But what if decorative objects are... Oh no, Discord didn't go into Do Not Disturb. Hold on. It didn't detect that I was streaming. What? Okay. Okay, yeah. So what if they aren't actually blocks, but are in fact static entities? And the game has a rendering system that allows all entities that are deemed as static to be meshed in a single mesh, similar to how blocks are. So like, the main reason that entities are laggy in a game like Minecraft is because they're all rendered as individual draw calls, and they have animations, and they need to be updated constantly. But if you have a specialized type of entity called a static entity, which doesn't have animations, it's static, like more or less unless you interact with it, like breaking it or placing it or something, and then they all mesh into one like render object per chunk, then you've almost got the same efficiency as blocks, but now you've got the ability to draw things that aren't aligned to the block grid. So if you then make all decorative objects basically static entities instead of blocks, and you like by default when you're placing them, align them to the block grid, but allow you to hold like Alt or whatever to unalign it from the block grid, and then you can place it at any point, I think that would be a really, really cool and useful like decorative feature. And I'm really interested in trying to make a system that does that. But, I mean, yeah, I guess basically, so that's one thing that I want to do. The other thing we could do is fix the structure system, which, you know, I've been working on it for a little while here, but I kind of took a break about a month ago because I went to GDC. So effectively where we left off is we can render individual structures, but they don't actually, the substructure functionality isn't working in Engine, which is quite limiting for the type of structures we can make. And it also doesn't really care if a tree gets cut off by a chunk or whatever. It will just be cut off, which is particularly egregious when we get to chunk boundaries that are vertical, because then you end up with like a bunch of tree stumps that just don't have trees on top of them. So that's the other thing we could address today, is working on fixing that, which is going to be a little bit involved, but it does need to get done, so, you know, I'm okay with doing that as well. So yeah, I guess basically, what do people think? Which one should we do today? Axel says, can't you use instancing instead of meshing them about the static entities? So, yes, we could use instancing, but meshing is often more efficient if you've got, like, a lot of different models. Like, for example, like, blocks are effectively instanced. They're not, but, like, it's using a similar technique in the form of vertex pulling to kind of have things that share the same rendering prefab exist in grid space like this. And that's really efficient for blocks because they follow shared patterns, right? However, you know, that creates a lot of constraints for, like, entities and stuff. If you wanted to have, like, a proper use of instancing, you need to have, like, a lot of entities with the same model and not a lot of visual variance. Whereas the static entity system that I'm envisioning here is kind of built around the idea that you can have, like, one-off textures and shapes and stuff, and it can still be efficient, right? And so for that, I think that, like, meshing them into single meshes is probably a better idea. Okay, please trees. I'm seeing, stumps. Yeah, okay. It seems like people want me to do the trees. Got it. Okay. Everything looks like a block if you only have 2 triangles for each side. I mean, that's true. Like, that is what we're doing here. I have no idea why there's leaves in the ground. That's probably an issue. Do you also chunk in height or just X and Y? Yes, it is cubic chunks. So each chunk is 32 blocks on every axis, including vertical. Alright, let's look at trees. So, I am kind of a little bit worried about getting started on this, and so that's kind of part of why I'm excited to do it, is because I'm a little bit worried about the difficulty of it, and that usually means that it's something that's going to be really interesting. It's a problem that's going to be fun to solve, right? And so the issue here is that currently, chunks are kind of generated in fixed regions. So basically, when a chunk job gets dispatched to the the game server, it will generate like a 4x4x4 grid of chunks, which is about 128 blocks wide in each axis. And this is all multi-threaded, which means that we don't necessarily know about the positions of the other blocks in the world, right? We only know what's in the current region. So to fix the fact that these things are getting cut off, we kind of need to do a little bit of extra stuff. We're gonna want to end up effectively over-generating on the generation threads, and then performing like a gather operation to find all of the positions where structures could be generated, and then generate them using the same, like, you know, generation parameters as we would in the actual position that they're in. So I guess, like, as a visualization here, all of these trees, their origin is their stump, right? So, like, it's actually this block right here is where it starts generating the tree, and then it goes up and out from there. Currently, this is a fixed prefab, so just, you know, all of these trees are identical right now, but in the future, that won't necessarily be the case, but that's not really relevant for what we're talking about here. So it starts here and it goes up, and then it tries to place all the blocks around it in the neighboring positions. This right here is a chunk boundary. It weirdly enough looks like it isn't a boundary here, but that's just because these two trees spawn side by side. But this is a chunk boundary, meaning that, you know, this was the border of the region that was being generated by the game. And so everything to the left here was part of one region, and everything to the right was part of another region. And this region over here doesn't know about the fact that the tree was generated right here because it's not generating any of these chunks to the right. Hey there, Sir Aaron, how you doing? So this has a couple effects, right? I mean, like, for one, it makes the generator faster because it doesn't have to care about what's to the, like, sides of it, right? It doesn't need to, like, regenerate the same work every time. But it also, you know, has the constraint that there's no continuous structures across chunk boundaries. And as we get into lighting, it also creates issues where, like, light sources on one chunk boundary won't be properly managed in, like, a neighboring chunk. I've been thinking a lot about how to solve the lighting issue specifically, and it was going to end up with a lot of weird main-threaded, like, fixing of chunks after they're generated, and it was honestly going to be a huge mess. So I'm kind of glad that I haven't gone into that yet, because I think that we can combine the problem of the lighting and the structure generation into a single solution that handles both better. Do I have a debug view for chunk boundaries? Not currently. I really should. The debug info is kind of light in this project. I've been quite lazy about actually creating useful debug tools for myself, which is a bit of a problem. So basically my proposed solution is this. Currently a chunk operation, or like a chunk generation, is basically a completely, like, a one-pass thing. It'll go through all of the stuff from, like, generating the densities of the blocks, to generating the topsoil, to generating the structures, to generating the lighting, all in one big step, right? And then we have the final result, which is all of the blocks. But we actually lose a lot of detail from doing that, because if we end up just, like, reducing it all to blocks, we don't have, like, the floating point densities, we don't have the temperature and the humidity, we don't have the origins of the structures because it's just a block grid, right? Like, we don't know that this stump came from this tree structure or another tree structure, or maybe, like, for some reason someone's made it so that occasionally, like, topsoil can generate independent trunks, right? So we kind of need this intermediary data if we're going to be looking at neighboring chunks to check if there's, like, a structure over there anyways. And so my idea is basically we subdivide the chunk generations into a series of smaller tasks, okay? And these tasks cache their, like, any useful level of, like, computation in a shared buffer that is multi-threaded, like, it's read safe across multiple threads and write safe across multiple threads. So for example, step 1 is generating, like, the density of the blocks, and then step 2 is generating the topsoil, and step 3 is generating the structures, and step 4 is generating the lighting. Okay? And so then what we can do is, after each step, we can save the partially finished job in a shared buffer, and then next time we're, say, generating a chunk, when we want to check if there should be a structure overlapping it, we can check if that buffer has the neighboring chunk to see if there's any structure placement parameters, right? So, like, was there supposed to be a structure placed here on the neighboring chunk? And then we can, like, generate it in the current chunk. And then if that data doesn't exist, like, say we're generating this chunk and we don't have this neighboring chunk information, we can just generate it up to the point where it's generating the structures, and then we can cache it in that queue, so when we eventually do go to build this chunk specifically, we've already done half the work. Now, this caching kind of needs to be, like, optimistic, I suppose. We sort of have to assume that the data doesn't exist unless it does, even if it's already in the process of being computed. So, like, we do have the issue of, like, okay, say that this region over here is being generated and this region over here is being generated at the same time, and it's on different threads, then we will end up duplicating work, because this chunk won't have data for this side yet, and so it'll have to generate half of this side, and then this chunk won't know about this side yet, and so it'll have to generate half of that side. So we will be wasting time if that happens, but I think that can be partially resolved by queuing things up into the mapgen threads based on their positions in the world. Like, we can try to kind of subdivide the world into, like, different macro chunk regions, and then tell each thread to generate one region at a time, which will reduce the weird overlap. And also, like, ultimately that means we're doing a bit of extra work, but the mapgen's also really, really fast. Like, if we look at the mapgen right now, it's taking 26 milliseconds on a single thread to generate a complete chunk, which is, you know, half of a frame, and it generates one chunk per like, I guess thread, which there's like 8 or something. Oh shit, raid. Also, I'm like super behind on messages. Hold on. Hey everyone, nice to see you. We're currently working on my my Voxel engine. I'm working on fixing the structure generation, because right now there's like trees and stuff that generate and they're split at the chunk boundaries. Yeah, so currently I was just going through the process that I'm going to be doing to try and fix the structures breaking at this point, which is effectively we're going to save the information for where structures are being generated on neighboring chunks in a cache, and then use it on the next chunks over to basically go, okay, was a tree generated like right over here on the chunk border? Let's continue generating it on this side. And we're going to be doing like a fancy multi-threaded data structure to make that work properly. Hold on, I'm gonna actually backread chat real quick here, because there's a few messages. Nukebird first time chat says, hi, wonder what you use for terrain generation. I tried to play with these noises, Perlin Simplex, FBM, also experimented with domain warping, but no matter what I tried, I felt unsatisfied with how my terrain looks. I mean, honestly, I never feel particularly satisfied with my terrain either. You know, it's always one of those things where I want to, like, dissect it and, like, keep tweaking it and whatever. As far as, like, what I'm actually using, you might want to screenshot this, because I'm not going to stare at it forever here. But here's like the biome noise parameters for the current chunk. It's a combination of, I guess there's no height map right now. So I can specify a height map, but currently this is just all 3D noise. And we're using a combination of outputting the current amplitude of the terrain to basically, like, you know, taper off blocks and like make them less solid as we go up, and then some warping to, you know, give it some like 3D jut outs and like depth, so like, you know, these overhangs are due to warping. And then we are combining the elevation and hills noise up here, which are just simplex. They're just, I think they're simplex with multiple octaves. I don't think it's using fractal stuff, it's just using like regular octaves and lacunarity and stuff. But yeah, these are the basic noise parameters here. Generate in chessboard pattern so neighbors won't be generated at the same time. That's incredibly smart. Oh, wait, hold on though. We'd still have the issue of sometimes structures will need to span the diagonal bounds. Although I guess, like, that is less common overall, right? And I do think that would, like, because this is optimistic, right? Like, if we do end up regenerating the same area twice, it doesn't break anything. So we're just kind of trying to taper off, like, we're trying to reduce the probability of that happening. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I do like that a lot. I'm gonna write that as a note for myself. One sec, I'm gonna draw this on a piece of paper for later reference. Checkerboard chunk gen. I'm giving it a big circle. Okay, catching up on the YouTube chat real quick. Those grass edges of the blocks are looking so nice. Thank you. Yeah, I'm actually really happy with how these work. It's like kind of weird connected texture stuff. Like you can see this is the grass block boundary, but it's rendering this grass overlay over the dirt. And that is general, like stone will get it too, and dirt will actually render over stone. You can see there's like some precision issues here. That's a weird issue with my renderer that I'm gonna fix pretty soon. But yeah, it allows there to be like lots of interesting little details between blocks. And like it also, like grass will render on the side of blocks as well, like this, which I'm quite happy with. Cobblestone actually like is higher up than grass, so it can kind of create this really nice and noisy sort of like path pattern with it if you place it in the ground. I'm very happy with this system. There's still a lot of kinks to be worked out, like there's some stuff that's really not optimized with it, and like some weird depth sorting stuff and issues with seams. But I am optimistic that those can be relatively easily fixed once I eventually get around to it. And I do think that like the flexibility afforded by it is really cool. Hey Ari, good to see you streaming again. Yeah, thanks. I'm glad to be doing it again. I haven't been streaming for the last like month and a bit because I went to GDC. Before that was like on vacation, and then I was working really hard on a commercial project I'm working on, and so I've kind of been really out of it, out of the game. But I'm really happy to be back. I had a great time streaming last week when we fixed like the terrible texture mapping stuff that was happening on walls where all the textures were distorted. So I'm generally just kind of like on a programming high, and I'm really enjoying doing what I'm doing right now, so it's feeling really good. What project is that? Okay, Brian. I've already plugged it. I'm not going to go super deep into it right now, but Brian's my business partner. We're working on a game called Stardust Frontier. It's a roguelike party game. So it's like kind of like Jackbox, where you control it with your phone and there's a TV, but it's a party game where you're kind of going through a miniature roguelike with your team and building up a mech that you're controlling as a group to be more powerful until you eventually fight off against the other team at the end. And yeah, we're planning on, we're making some devlogs that are going to be on my YouTube channel pretty soon. And we also have just like regular blogs on my website. So if you're interested in that, you know, my YouTube link's on the screen, like, that way. Yeah, over there. But yeah, no, I'm really excited about it. I'm not gonna dwell too long on it because this is like, you know, Zephyr stream, but I hope that people are somewhat interested in that because I think it's gonna be really cool. So it's like a layer system. Okay, going back to the grass stuff. So it's like a layer system where blocks on a higher/lower layer are able to affect blocks of the higher/lower layers. Block precedence? Exactly, yeah. You can actually precisely see that if I go to nodes. You can see there's these groups, and groups they're kind of like tags, but they can also contain a numeric value associated with them. And the tags can be read by the renderer, or at least by the block model. So this is a special block model that has like extra planes on each like neighboring face that are conditionally rendered based on the groups of its neighbors. So like for example, this cobblestone block, it is rendering faces on all of these edges based on the fact that they have a lower blend value. So the blend value for cobblestone is 40. And if we go to blend here, you can see grass is 19. Dirt is 10, and sand is 12. I forgot sand existed. Hold on. Give sand. So, whoa, game freak out. Okay, so sand should be, yeah, sand is lower than grass. I can see that there's some weird orientation stuff that's happening, but it's higher than dirt, which means that you can see that the sand kind of like flows onto the dirt, right? So basically the way that it works is that it renders each of those faces based on the, like comparing the current blend value with the neighboring one. Which allows it to basically do this. I don't know how to explain it other than that. It's doing what you're seeing. And I'm happy with it. I don't know why those are oriented wrong. I'll have to look into that. And then for the actual, like, for these grass things, it's kind of similar, except it's not checking for a blend value, it's just checking if the block over here culls. So that, like, if we grab a fence... That's not the right block. Give wooden fence. No, give wood fence. Yeah, if we have a fence, it doesn't create, like, the puffy stuff around it there. Hey there, wanted to ask you, do you load your textures asynchronously? I've been wrestling with the idea in my project, but as far as I know, OpenGL APIs always have to be... OpenGL API calls always have to be on the main thread. Interesting question. I quit using OpenGL, like, a year and a half ago, basically for that issue, and a bunch of other weird API stuff. I really hate the OpenGL API. It was driving me insane for so many years before I finally decided to quit it. This project is now built entirely in Vulkan, which has really simple multi-threaded texture uploads. So like my texture uploads are multi-threaded, my meshes are multi-threaded, and it just works flawlessly. And like the API is actually built for that, and I guess I cannot recommend Vulkan enough. But to actually answer your question about OpenGL, I know it's possible to do multi-threaded uploads with OpenGL. I also know, though, that it's, like, really complicated. So, I gave up trying to learn it a long time ago. I don't know, like, I'm sure that you've probably got, like, a project that you're quite invested in that's in OpenGL. I'd still recommend swapping over. It took me maybe, like, 2 months, but I'm so happy that I did it. But, yeah, I know it's possible if you look it up. I don't know much about it, so I wouldn't really be able to comment on it other than that I gave up doing it because it was too hard. But yeah, I mean, currently in the engine everything is multi-threaded because I'm using Vulkan. but it wasn't before when I had OpenGL. I really like these connected textures. I know they're like kind of glitchy right now with like the seams, and that's probably something else that would be worth a stream just quickly fixing up. But I do really like the effect. I also like these ferns. I just think they're cool. Alright, I need to stop like staring at my own block models and being like, wow, look at that. Very engaging stream, right? Okay, so let's actually do some coding, right? Let's get some work done. So if I go over to the map gen, let's close all these other tabs so that things aren't quite as confusing. I have awesome blocks, thank you. So this is the map gen thread, or I guess this is the map gen object, which is run in a map gen. Where the hell is it? Threaded. Okay, hold on. World has a bunch of stuff here. The mesh task and the map gen task. The map gen task runs mapgen.generate. There's only one map gen. Interesting. Oh, because all of these are thread local, right? Hold on. I think there's a bunch of thread local. No, there isn't. Oh, all of these methods are static? Really? No, not all of them are static. Hold on, what is happening here? Oh, I think I just pass everything around in this job structure. I think that's what happens here, is everything is stored within the job, and then I just create a job when I start running generate. Yeah, I create this job, and then that has all of the parameters that get sent around. Yeah, I was a bit afraid you'd say that. I would switch to Vulkan, but I'm still learning OpenGL, and it's been quite a learning curve, so learning Vulkan right off the bat when being new to 3D feels a bit like an overkill. But thank you so much for your answer. Yeah, I also learned through OpenGL, for the record. I don't think that's a bad way to learn, and I think it makes a lot of sense to be afraid of like jumping straight into Vulkan because it is incredibly complicated. I got to the point where I felt relatively comfortable doing it after several years, and I still had like a hell of a time setting it up. I guess my best advice is there are really good guides, like I think vkguide.dev is one of them, and it was really useful for my learning. And like, I guess ultimately, like, you will end up writing a fuck ton of code if you swap to Vulkan. Like, my renderer is 1700 lines long. And yes, a lot of that could be separated out into separate files, but, you know, it currently is 1700 lines long. But it also does some fairly complicated things. And I think that actually writing all of the Vulkan code out and having to learn the system really deeply helps a lot with my understanding of the fundamentals of graphics programming in general in a way that OpenGL didn't really help me develop. Like, I was able to get decent at rendering stuff with OpenGL, but I never really understood why it worked the way it did. I feel like OpenGL is pretty bad at like actually disclosing what's happening on a deeper level, whereas Vulkan is really good at doing that. So I don't know. I guess like my point is I don't feel bad if you want to stick with OpenGL for now, because it is a huge learning curve. But ultimately, I would say probably look in that direction for the future, because it is a really worthwhile thing to learn if you're interested in graphics programming. Base to Oblivion says, what Linux distro do you use? I currently use Endeavour OS on the GNOME like desktop environment setup. You know, I've got GNOME here. I really like GNOME. I know some people don't like it because it's like opinionated and stuff, but it makes me very happy. I like it a lot. Good day, already been a week again. I was thinking that too. I don't know what happened, but I feel like my last stream was like yesterday, but it was a week ago. Like, I don't remember when this happened. Time just passed. But, yeah, we're back. Okay, so the map gen here is going to be kind of interesting because we need to create this shared queue, right? And so I think the easiest way to do that would be to have a static on the map gen. I just installed Arch with KDE Plasma on my laptop. I'm thinking of installing it on my desktop as well. So, okay, I'm gonna try not to get too bitchy about this, but KDE is my least favorite desktop environment. I just think, like, it's a cool concept, but its implementation is so bad that it just, I I hate it. I hate KDE so much. I would prefer XFCE over KDE, although currently my favorite is GNOME right now. But, you know, Linux programmers be opinionated, so obviously do your own thing, don't listen to me, take that with a grain of salt. But if you're not very invested in KDE, I'd say run the fuck away as quickly as you can. But yeah, Endeavor is an Arch derivative. I don't really like installing every thing myself with the display drivers and stuff, so I just use the derivatives because I'm lazy. But it does use the Arch repositories and stuff, and I will say that is my favorite Linux experience overall that I've had so far. You know, I tried Debian and Ubuntu before, you know, with apt and stuff, and I got so frustrated with the fact that the packages were frozen to the major version of the OS. I really prefer rolling release, and I really like how the Arch user repositories make pretty much everything installable through their single system. I do really like Arch. It's great. Okay, so let's take a look at the map gen. Let's do a super broad strokes overview. There's a lot of code in here. We're gonna try and keep it relatively simple, light and breezy. So when we try to generate, we get an origin, a dimension, and a size of the region we're trying to generate, and an LOD property, which I think is mostly ignored right now. And then we create noise samples for the temperature and humidity of the entire region. This is actually another pain point for something that I want to fix later. These noise samples are grossly inefficient. Interpolating their data, because they sample, I think, every 4 blocks in each axis, then they interpolate using trilinear interpolation, and this function is so poorly implemented that it takes, I think, about 20% of the total mapgen time. I wrote it without using my brain to think, and so basically every single point in this volume does the trilinear interpolation every single time, which is just generally very insane. It could be so much easier done if I just basically went, okay, let's do it in lines. So we get all the sample points, and they're a sparse grid of 4x4 dots. Then we linearly interpolate in one axis so that it becomes a sparse grid of lines going down. Then we linearly interpolate in the second axis, so we end up with a grid of planes. Then we linearly interpolate in the third axis, and then we end up with a fully generated map. And that would be so much more efficient than this. You can see that I fell back into trying to use SIMD for this as well, because I was basically trying to micro-optimize brute force this to be less slow, instead of just thinking about the problem for 10 seconds. So that's definitely something I want to address. But that's a problem for another day. So, KDE slander will not be tolerated. Well, then you're gonna have to mute me, because I will not stop. No, I won't keep talking about KDE, because, obviously people have their opinions, and those opinions are valid, your favorite DE is mostly just a matter of opinion. I hate it. I want to strangle KDE. Not the people that make KDE, just KDE as, an abstract concept. I want to, have some confidence. Why are you bashing yourself and saying your engine is awful, please? It's more of a tongue-in-cheek thing. I'm just kind of joking about it because there's some really gross visual bugs that have just been sitting around for a long time, and I'm finally trying to fix this issue where the structures aren't generating across chunk boundaries. Yeah, that's what we're working on today. So yeah, okay. So when we start, we generate the temperature and humidity. I don't think it's really worth memoizing that, because it's only used... Oops. It is only used... Find all references. Do you do a scatter operation or a gather operation for the trees? Currently, it's scatter. We're trying to fix that. Or I guess, technically it will still be scatter, but it'll be a pseudo-gather type operation. The generation system has an origin, for each of the structures. And I don't think that's avoidable as like a concept, because like as the system is designed, it's kind of built to be a tree. Like it's effectively a directed acyclic graph of like little mini structures that get like chained onto each other. So I don't think it's possible to make it like a true gather operation where like every block pulls whether there should be a structure placed there, or like whether a block of a structure is placed there. But it will be possible. It will be possible to basically store the origin points of structures on neighboring chunks to then like fill them in the like bordering chunks. I prefer XFCE when I need a lightweight environment, otherwise I'd go for Cinnamon. I've never used Cinnamon. I might try it sometime, although I'm currently very happy with my desktop environment. I don't want to change things around right now, but, you know, eventually one day in the future. I'm one of those people that installs like a new Android launcher every time, and so I end up just like, I end up like messing around with a lot of different desktop environments. Used to love KDE, but once I realized how smooth and stable GNOME is, I never looked back. I find KDE to be a bit unstable and clunky now. That's my main issue with it. It just feels like it's not very, like, optimized, and it feels like it's not very polished. I would somehow make it possible for one chunk to be able to safely write to its neighbors. So we can't directly do that, because this is multi-threaded, and also that kind of creates, like, a dependency tree that never ends. So, like, if you think about it, right, if a chunk can write to its neighbors, and then when we're generating chunks, we need to check if the neighboring chunks want to write to it, which means that we need to generate the neighboring chunks, and then we need to check if their neighboring chunks want to write to them, and it's effectively recursive. So what I'm ending up doing here, I think, is we're basically going to run the generation in stages, where like first we generate the density, and then the biomes, and then the blocks, and then the structures. And we're going to store just like the neighboring regions, partial generations there, and just allow things to move over one region, but not, yeah, the endless padding is painful. We're gonna allow things to move over one region of space, but not more than that. Just gather the structures into the chunk you're generating, then you generate the chunk without the gathered structures, then overlay them over the chunk. Sorry, hold on. You gather the structures into the chunk you're generating, and then you generate the chunk without the gathered structures, then you overlay them. By gather, I mean you put them into a queue. You don't have to gather per block. Yeah, I mean, I think that's more or less what the idea is here, I think. I'm just wanting to do it a bit more generally, because this also helps with lighting. Like, currently it's kind of weird for lighting to span multiple chunks, because, like, you know, a light can go really far, and then if that light goes to a chunk border, then the next chunk over doesn't really know the lighting exists, right? So I'm trying to basically, like, store partially generated neighboring chunks with the data that we need. She has a good idea, stop judging her. No, I appreciate the feedback. It's good to, like, sort my ideas out on stream, because oftentimes people do have better ideas or ways to refine it. Okay, so we have our computed volumes and height maps. And then, so once we get the temperature and humidity, we effectively go through and we find the biome for each region here. And then if we've not yet found that biome, we generate all of the noises for that biome for the entire region. This is basically so that we can take into account the kind of like SIMD that's happening with the noise library here. I'm using Fast Noise 2 as my like noise generation stuff, and it works a lot better if you generate large regions of noise at once than if you're generating like single points. That's what this Gen Uniform Grid 2D is doing, and Gen Uniform Grid 3D. They work a lot better if you're generating whole regions. So initially I was like just generating individual points in this function based on what biome was at the specific block, but it was like a 5 times speed up to just generate the entire region's noise for the entire, for each biome that exists within it. Do you take inspiration from Teardown sometimes? I've not really looked too deeply into Teardown. It's definitely like an interesting project, but the fact that it's all like pre-generated maps and it's also ray traced means that it's pretty far away from what I'm doing here. There's not like all that much that's super applicable to me. Like I respect the hell out of it, but it's kind of like, yeah. Could you have a larger generation regions, like maybe 4x4 or 8x8 chunks, and then gather large structures into that region, and then put the structure reference into a queue for each chunk? Hold on. Then you can gather large structures into that region, then put the structure reference into a queue. Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, that's kind of what's already happening. When we generate the chunks, we're generating them as, like, a certain... This is the funkiest song in this playlist. What the hell is happening? I feel like I've never heard this before. It's Who's This Cool Guy from Sunshine Heavy Industries. Okay, sure. Sorry, that completely threw me. Yeah, we're already generating chunks in 4x4x4 grids, and I'm planning on making it so the maximum, like, spanning region, like, over a chunk boundary that can happen is that size. So, like, if a structure generates in one region that's 4x4x4, it can't occupy more than a 4x4x4 off of that origin point. Sweet smooth groove. Oh, I love the Cobalt Core music, and, like, I guess Aaron Cheroff's music in general. I think that they're, like, great tracks. I've just never heard that one, even though I must have, because it's been, like, in the playlist forever, and it just completely shocked me. I was like, what was that? How do you get the motivation to code? Sometimes I have a massive urge to code, but I can't get myself to actually do it. I don't know. I mean, like, I'm not sure if this is general advice, but streaming helps. Like, knowing I'm supposed to do this every week, it encourages me to, like, get into the mindset of programming, which I guess generally you could say, like, it's routine, right? Like, I think generally, like, habit forming is really hard, but once you have the habits, it gets a lot easier. Maybe you could use something like a 64 tree where larger structures fill larger size nodes, then smaller structures go into smaller nodes. I don't think that's necessary. I think that this system's fine as is. Brian says, having passion for the project, without that it's rough. That's true. Like, if you're pushing yourself to work on something you don't care about, it can be really difficult, and I don't have a good solution for that myself. I just, like, give up on things when I lose interest in them, which isn't the best. You either love it or you don't. Learning tech makes me miserable, so I don't do it. Well, then I'm surprised you're watching a programming stream. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm happy you're here, but, like, if you hate tech, what are you getting out of this? Okay, so we're generating all of the noise parameters for the biomes, which is important information that we want to keep. And then we go in and we convert that into the density. So this generates effectively the depth and the grade for all of the blocks in the chunk. And then from there, we go through each of the positions and we generate the nodes and the decorations. Now, this weirds me out, okay? So this... Oh wait, hold on, this is for each... Yeah, this is for each chunk. Interesting. So wait, are the chunk boundaries actually per chunk and not even per region? This might be worse than I thought because I programmed this like an idiot. Let's see. So there's a chunk boundary there. There's a chunk boundary there. That's the same boundary, right? Yeah. And that's a boundary there. Okay, how many blocks away is this? From there to here? That's not 128 blocks, right? Like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 30-ish. Okay. Yeah, no, that is like a 64 block gap. So this is actually much worse than I thought. Because of the way I'm generating the structures, we're not even, like, keeping them contiguous across a region. Like the 4x4x4 region. It is literally clamped by each chunk, which is bad. Really bad. I just figured it would make it more efficient to gather structures from a spatial hierarchy. I just don't see how that would be the case in this. Like, maybe I'm just not thinking about it the right way, but I can't think of why that would actually make this more efficient in this case. Learning with someone can be enjoyable, you bring each other up in hard times and so on. I can enjoy it in sensible portions when I'm not alone. That makes sense. Socially learning is really nice. I mean, that's a lot of what got me through university. It was just like, I hate everything about this, but at least I have friends that also hate it, so we can talk about how much we hate it together. I get motivated by the overwhelming need to build my own code editor for some reason. Oh no. Not in the case of the trees, but for larger structures, I guess I should have specified. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I'll have to take a look, because I get what you're saying. It might be useful to kind of, like, store the individual structure, like, segments, so that I can easily check if they overlap, and you're right, like, some sort of, like, spatial structure might be useful there. Although I'm guessing with the sheer amount of math that's happening to generate all of the block positions, that, like, any math that would be, like, for looking up what structures overlap would be so minuscule that that would basically be a micro-optimization. Like, I can't imagine that taking, like, more than 1% of the actual generation time. And, well, you know, obviously I want to optimize this as much as I can, and I might eventually do that. I do want to keep it more readable right now. Social learning with Ari is listening to her nerd out about how UI works for, like, 2 hours. It's pretty great. I bitch so much about bad interfaces. They piss me off. They really piss me off. Those are my uni days too. Suffering shared is suffering halved. Yeah, I'm so excited I graduate at the end of this month, and I'll never, ever, ever, ever have to do school again, and I fucking won't. I will never go and do education again. I got the degree, I'm not an academic, I never want to be a part of the school system ever again. Okay, so I think this is kind of the critical point here, where it's like, we kinda need to cache stuff above here for the stuff below here. I mean, technically what we could do, this is kind of cursed, but if I do this, and then this, so we're effectively just separating the process, so we're generating the nodes in one step, and then the decorations in another step. This should still work the same, except it's, you know, slightly slower, because we're doing 2 loops. But that's actually really important, because we kind of need it to be slower there. Like, we need this to be done in 2 separate steps. Oh wow, look, that fixed, like, a bunch of the seams. Yeah, so a lot of the issues now where, like, you know, it was trying to render into neighboring chunks and that wasn't even possible, that's now fixed just by doing that, but we still have region borders. Like this tree here, this is on the border of a region, and you can kind of actually tell that because the grade computation's fucked up here too, which would be another thing that would be nice to get working properly. So that's like a kind of other issue here. This populate grade and depth. This should probably go to do, should cache the densities of neighboring chunks in the thread cache as well, so that the grade can be computed properly across regions. I guess just to actually explain what that means, I have grade-based topsoil, or strata, or whatever, so like that's why this stuff on the wall is cobblestone, but this stuff up here is grass. It's basically based on the evaluated slope of the terrain. And this is a region border here, you can tell because the tree's cut off, and it doesn't actually have the data for the blocks that are over the side here, so it basically just ignores that entire side and tries to base it off of just the one side, which ends up making it less accurate, which usually isn't that big of a deal, but on like places where it's kind of sensitive to like get the strata right, it does end up being in general less accurate, and you can kind of see weird little minor seams around. It's not like a big enough deal to really matter for the most part, but it's one of those things where like if I'm already going to be optimizing this to like fix seams, I may as well try to fix that one too. Oh, I don't know if this would be useful to you, but if you do a lot of bounds checks with XYZ coordinates, there's a cool trick. Yeah, I'd love to hear it. Let XYZ as X or Y or Z. Okay. So, Sure. X as U32 is greater or equal to 64. Wait, how does that work? Sorry, so... XYZ, if XYZ as U32 is greater or equal to 64... Wait. So... Huh. So it checks if XYZ is greater or equal to 64, also checks if they're less than 0. Does that only work? I assume that works for any power of 2, so I could do like, let XYZ is equal to X or Y or Z. If XYZ as U32, or I guess as U32, XYZ greater or equal to 32, like that would also work if we had a 32 block bound. It works for non-powers of 2 as well. Really? I guess... I'm trying to think of why that makes sense. I can kind of see it. I need to play with it a little bit if, you know, I was going to, like, really understand it. I do understand how the 2's complement part works, because, you know, like, as soon as you start, like, treating it as unsigned, then it will be greater than the bound if it is negative, because it will be within the upper half of the entire space. I mean, I guess if you went, like, uint max divided by 2, that would suddenly stop working, but that's really not an issue here. That's really cool. Thank you for telling me. I will look into that. Alright, so... hold on. Okay, so, let's do this caching first. So we're generating the chunk nodes, and then we're generating the decorations, right? Generating the decorations depends on the blocks. It's like, for example, generating it here, it does check what the node is at this point. Segment is a... what is this? Job.chunks, which store... oh god. I hate how it, like, if I press, like, open definition here, it opens the definition for the subscript operator of an array. Okay, so this is a world segment. I believe this is just a chunk. Yeah, okay. So we have a bunch of chunks here. So... hey Saluna, how you doing? So I guess the deal here is that we should probably be storing these blocks not in a chunk, because chunks have, like, a lot of extraneous data, and we don't actually care about any of that when we're getting into generating structures. My current plan is that structures cannot be affected by, like, you know, the light level when they're generating, or, you know, the data values of the blocks they're generating on or anything. That might be a mistake. Well, yeah, I don't know if that's a mistake. We'll see, though. What language is HPP? It's just a header file for C++. Typically, people do .h, but HPP is like a slightly less standard header. Yeah, it's C++. How's the engine coming along? Haven't been able to check in for like 2 months or something. Well, hey there, welcome back. That sounded very, like, southern. I went like, hey there. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, it's going good. We recently fixed the UVs getting distorted on vertical blocks, and now we're working on fixing the structures not generating properly over chunk seams. Yeah, so... okay, so just trying to, like, ideate on this idea, you know, I know I'm not writing much code, but, like, oftentimes you end up having to, like, think about problems before you implement them, otherwise you just end up with a mess. So we need to know the blocks that are at a position to generate... I guess we need to know the blocks and the biome. And at that point, if you look at the chunk, chunks are storing blocks, liquids, biomes, light levels, custom data, and then other custom data. So, howdy there, partner. So I guess what we'll do is, for now, we'll just save the entire chunk, because it seems like all of those parameters are more or less a bit useful, and then we'll probably pare that down in the future if we find that some of those properties are less relevant. I know I've asked before, but I went off shortly after, why are you using C++ combined with TypeScript, and how? Okay, so I guess so I'll start with the rationale. The main reason is because I am a web developer, and I think the most beautiful thing about the web... What the fuck happened there? Huh, that's a new one. Okay, moving on from that. So my favorite thing about the web is that experiences can just be loaded up, like, immediately. I've played Minecraft for a long time, and I've always loved that you can just join a server, and then it's got, like, plugins that just work on the server side. And I've always been frustrated that it doesn't have that sort of ability with mods. Like, you can't, like, load up a server and just get the mods from the server. Plugins are great, but they're very limited, right? A long time ago, I got really interested in Mindtest, which is like it's a different engine that kind of does a similar thing to what I'm doing, but the scripting language is Lua, and it can send, it actually doesn't have any client-side modding, but on the server side, Lua is entirely sandboxed, which means that you're able to very easily install mods onto your server without worrying about your system. And like, everything just interoperates really nicely, a lot nicer than Minecraft's modding API. And I kind of combined that and my web energy together and created this unholy amalgamate of both, where the idea is that, okay, mods can run on the server and the client. They are all running sandboxed in TypeScript using V8, which is Chrome's JavaScript runtime. So theoretically, it is as secure as a website, in the sense that, like, it's not going to be able to run code that's going to break out into your system. All mods can be sent via the server to the client and mix and matched with a stable modding API, so you can just, like, add more content onto the game without having to worry about, like, everything breaking and falling apart. And even the first-party content that I want to make in it is going to be made in the modding API. So everyone is getting the exact same tools that I'm getting to author stuff. And, the ultimate vision is basically I can make a game, and people can make their own experiences in games and mods and stuff, and they don't ever break, and you can just download, like, join a server and it downloads all the content, and you can just have, like, an entirely, like, perfect sandboxed experience of, like, whatever stuff you want to have. I don't know, I feel like that's, like, a really messy explanation. I feel like I usually do a better job, but that's the idea. And as for how it actually works, I compile V8 and then I run it. If I go to the scripting environment, I basically initialize the V8 engine, because it is possible to use as a standalone library separate from Chromium, and I load all the files into it. I don't know. I mean, I have a library that is, if I go to, like, Zepha, this is the main library that's exposed to mods. It has a bunch of atlases that are exported as JavaScript exports. They all call native code. So, like, for example, the entity atlas here, it has a bunch of functions. It creates an atlas which has a bunch of functions that are accessible in JavaScript, and they call native code here to, like, actually do stuff and bridge the gap between the two languages. And then there's just a fuck ton of extra glue around it all to make it all work. Mindtest, yes, Mindtest. I think it's called Luanti now. I've not been involved in the community for a number of years, honestly, but I know they changed their name recently. A web dev on this stream? Blasphemy. Okay. Web dev gets a bad rap. I think it's cool, but also it drives me crazy if I do it for too long, so maybe I shouldn't be speaking so highly of it. Would you consider doing a shader building exploration stream, something like Shader Toy? I mean, it's not like I think that's a bad idea, it's just, to be honest, I'm really bad at shaders. Last stream I did some iteration on a shader, and I really struggled with doing it properly. I'm just not that good of a programmer when it comes to graphics programming, And eventually I'd like to get to the point where I'm comfortable enough in it that I feel good doing that. But I feel like if I tried to do that as it is right now, I just end up bumbling around and not understanding what's going on for the majority of the time. That sounds really cool. Community-made game basically sounds good. Yeah, I mean, like, so I think one of the things that differentiates it from, like, the likes of, I guess, like, Roblox or, like, you know, modern, like, VR chat or games as experiences, is that, like, I do actually have a game that I want to make with it, and I want to package the engine as the game, if that makes sense. Like, a long time ago, I wanted to basically release Zephyr as an engine and make free games within it, right? And, like, you pay for the engine, then you get all of the games for free. And then I realized that there's, like, a bunch of issues with that. I mean, the first is that, like, you know, it basically means that, like, assuming my player base doesn't grow insanely, it makes it very hard for me to fund actually working on new stuff, right? Like, if I want to make a completely new Voxel game, then I can't charge for it. You know, I've already charged for it once, and that kind of, like, as much as I love giving stuff away for free, I do also have bills to pay. And the other issue is marketing. Like, it's really, really hard to market a voxel engine void of any content, because people are just going to be like, well, why don't I play Minecraft? Like, Minecraft has blocks, and it has a game that's interesting, right? So, like, I want to be able to showcase the engine, or I want to be able to showcase the product as the game, while still having all the flexibility of it being an engine. So my ultimate goal is basically to create a first-party game. It's called Zeus. I have a lot of ideas for it. And then release it as Zeus on, like, Steam or whatever, but then basically have all of the engine controls laid bare still in the game, so you can literally make anything. Like, you don't even need to build a game off of Zeus, you could just build a game from scratch in it. It's just, you know, distributed through Zeus on Steam, if that makes sense. One sec. Okay, I have a meme here from Brian, one sec. Okay. I hate this meme. This is from, this is the web dev conversation. Actually, front end is more complicated than back end. Who made it more complicated? Who made it more complicated? I don't want to take blame for this, but it's true. I do this. It's terrible. I want to do game development, but I think graphics programming is the hardest part, so I plan on speccing into that. Hopefully I can get out of Texas to get my degree. As part of the plan, though, I'm, like, ideologically open source in the sense that I think everything should be open source at end of life, but end of life is an important part of the statement. That's basically the same thing. Like, Brian and I have talked a lot about that, because we're making our other game, which is effectively, it's like an always online party game, right? Like, it's similar to Jackbox, where you have a centralized server that you connect to with room codes. And something that, like, I'm very, very intensely passionate about when it comes to stuff like that is I don't want to make vaporware. Some of my favorite experiences have been centralized server online only and have gone dark because the developers don't want to keep paying for the servers and you can never play it again. And I think that's one of the, like, worst crimes of all time. And so, like, one of my very important things is, like, as soon as we start selling that game or, like, you know, collecting crowdfunding or whatever, I want to ingrain in stone in, like, a legally binding EULA that if we ever stop maintaining the game, like, if we ever decide to permanently shut it down, all of that stuff goes to the community. You can run your own servers, you have the open source code. Like, if we're abandoning it, the game doesn't get to go away, you know? And I feel very strongly that all things should be made like that. I wish I could open source the Zephyr engine now. It's just, I don't know, I've been working on it for like 6 years and I don't want to hold a day job, so I want to be able to make money off of it. And I'm not super optimistic about crowdfunding for a niche voxel project. Yeah, what does that note? Hold on, wait. So incredibly based, that's exactly how it should be, thank you. I know I've asked before, but, oh, hold on, wait. What is that notation you've got next to parameters and function calls and stuff? Are you talking about, like, the fact that it's got, like, the names here? That's just a VS Code feature. It's called inlay hints. You can turn them on in the settings, and it'll just show you, like, the type of the variable. Like, that's not actually, like, in the code. I can't delete that. It's just telling me that this is the name of, this parameter. This is the name of this parameter. It's just like a disambiguating thing. Everything's open source if you know assembly. I hope you didn't miss my comment where I said I was wrong about the non-powers of two thing. I did notice it, sorry, I forgot to reply. Yeah, no, same, I also want to make money off of my project as well. It's difficult. I wish we lived in a world where that wasn't a thing that was necessary, but, like, I guess for me it's like I have to choose if I want to, like, be able to do the things I want to do in life, which involves actually acquiring capital, or to not. And as much as I'm an idealist, I'm more selfish than that. I actually, like, I have ambitions that I care about more than, you know, sticking to my guns and not making any money. But, you know, one day I hope that that's not a thing that I have to worry about. Alright, so let's take a look at the map gen. So basically, yeah, there's a difference there's a difference between stopping once you're financially secure. That's true. You know, I don't want to be like, I don't want to run an evil Google megacorp. I don't want to be like, oh yes, we've kept acquiring wealth, now we can exploit our employees. You know, once I hit a certain amount of money, I'm just going to be like, alright, we're done. But, you know, if we ever get to that point, I suppose. I live with $1,200 a month and save $200 a month, and I'm happy and I don't need more. I imagine you're in America, so that's USD. I'm just trying to run the numbers there. That would be about 18 to 2 grand maybe here, which is about what my living expenses are. So I don't know if I could live off of that personally. I think, like, it's very situationally dependent, though. But, like, yeah, I don't really have much desire to, like, live in a egregiously wealthy way. I just want to be able to live comfortably and make art. Either you die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Well, then I will become a villain. But, no, I think I can thread the line, maybe. We'll see. Where am I from? I am from Western Canada. Specifically, I'm on, like, the southern tip of Vancouver Island, which is, like, right up and left of the American border. It's, like, right next to Seattle. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, originally I was from a much smaller town that was on the Sunshine Coast, but I moved here for university, and I'm staying here because I like it. And there's a lot more people here than there are in my hometown, so... yeah. Okay. From Germany, gotcha, yeah. Hey there, Bunny Slayer 2K. That is an amazing username. Alright, so... oh man, I feel like I'm in full, like, easily distracted mode right now. Let's see if we can, get this sorted. So obviously, ideally, in the future, we want to store the density somewhere. Because we want to be able to populate the grade based on, like, neighboring chunk densities, but we're not going to do that yet. For now, we are going to generate the nodes. Then we're going to go to do cache each chunk here in a map. Can't believe Germa's so popular they named a whole country after his name. Okay. I can't fucking believe this. Get out of my chat with your dad jokes. My girlfriend is from Alaska, but that's what's funny is that she grew up around a lot of Canadians and has a Canadian accent. Aw. Yeah, I mean, Alaska, I've never been up there, but, like, if she was on, like, the little strip that cuts off half of British Columbia, then, like, I'm not surprised that she knows a lot of Canadians. The face of confusion for a sec. I was trying to figure out what it meant. Yeah. Okay. Okay, actually, you know what? Chat. I have no idea. Okay, so I grew up in Canada, and I know I don't have, and I'm still in Canada, to be clear. I'm surrounded by Canadians all the time. And I know I don't have, like, the stereotypical, like, northern Canadian accent, you know, where you're like saying A and stuff. I don't want to like Flanderize my own my own region by trying to imitate it, because I'm not actually very good at accents, but I don't have that. Do I have a Canadian accent? Like, of any variety? Like, I don't know what I actually sound like on like an abstract level, because, you know, obviously I'm just used to how I sound. You can't tell Canadian accents and American accents apart. I mean, I think that a lot of them sound the same. Slightly, yeah, I have slightly Canadian energy, got it. Okay. Okay, understood. Yeah, I mean, I drove through 3 states. I went through Washington, then Oregon, then, California for, you know, visiting, GDC. And we talked to a lot of people there, and they sounded exactly the same as the Canadians here, so, I don't know. I think it's a lot, like, it's kind of, I feel like it's more regional than country defined, right? Like, yeah. There's the Northern Canadian accent and the Southern American accent. I don't think I have a Southern American accent. I know I say y'all, but that's usually just for gender neutrality, not, you know. Yeah, alright. There's a West Coast accent that we have. Yeah, that makes sense. Not to get into it, but I imagine you're pretty happy to not be an American. With the political structure that's happening right now, I'm a little bit relieved that I wasn't there permanently. My heart goes out to everyone that's dealing with what's going on down there, but I don't want to get particularly into the politics at the moment. But yeah, I am quite happy that I'm up here right now. That's all I'll say. They're on different sides. When I first started watching your streams, I thought it could be plausible that you lived in the Seattle area. I mean, that's basically where I am. Like, I can see Seattle if I look out from the coast. It's just, you know, across the water. There are so many types of Southern accents. Oh god. They all sound different. I'm not, like, down in the South enough to know that. I've never been down into, like, the mainland American South. A wave to you sometime? Alright, sure, yeah. This evening I'll go down to the beach and I'll just wave at the air. I'm sure you'll be able to sense it. It's like a telepathic connection. Have I ever left the American continent? Yeah, I've visited Hawaii. I've done that twice. My most recent time was like a month and a bit ago. But that's pretty much it. I've done that. I went to Mexico, but obviously that's still the same continent. And that's the only out of Canada and America experiences I've had. I mean, I know Hawaii is also part of America. You get what I mean. You get the point. Did you know the word kindergarten is from Germany and literally means child garden? I did know that, and I think it's super adorable. It's so cute. Like, I have no idea how that became the de facto term here, but I absolutely love it. Good, don't come to Texas. Yeah, things seem really rough down there. I'm sorry for everyone that's being forced to deal with that right now. Schadenfreude, yeah, I'm sure I completely butchered the pronunciation on that, but I could tell that one was German. You've always wanted to visit the US. Yeah, I mean, honestly, my experience with going to Cali was that no one really cares. So I wouldn't necessarily say that, like, I guess obviously, like, follow your heart. If you don't feel safe, don't go. But I don't think that it's that bad, at least on the West Coast, from what I've seen. But, you know, maybe wait until the next election. They do need public bathrooms. Okay, there was no public bathrooms in the entirety of downtown San Fran. That was pretty crazy. Okay. Sorry guys, I'm gonna get back on topic. Let's make some stuff, okay? We're gonna create a, we're gonna need a mutable, right locked, and this is going to be a chunk cache lock. And then we're gonna go and also have a umap, which is going to be from an IVEC3 to a chunk. And that's going to be the chunk cache. What's mutable in C++ for you? I know you abuse macros. It's not an abuse, okay? No, it's literally just mutable. The mapgen is, like, all of the functions are const, because I want to be clear about the spirit of the fact that it's not actually mutating any internal state that would be, you know, relevant to an outside observer. And if you want to mutate something when you have a const reference to it, you either have to const cast it, which is gross, or make it mutable, which is also gross, but conveys the intent a little bit cleaner. It basically allows you to manipulate something that's constant. Learning C++ views and ranges, and they're funky. They are super weird, yeah. This is why I like Rust. I really don't like Rust's reference system. I'm sorry. I need to say it. I'm coming out. I'm saying it right now. I don't like it. Please pronounce it. Oh, okay. I mean, Rinder ken Zeichnungs Flechtteirugs über Waschung Sauf geben über Tragung Gesetz. I'm sure that was spot on. C++ is funny because it has PP. I just joined the stream. The first thing I hear is a personal attack on my baby Rust. Guess I have to leave again. I love Rust. I do love Rust. Mutable references, they bother me, okay? They bother me a lot. I think it's a really cool system. I just think it makes it too hard for me to be an asshole and break it. I'm choking on water. Where's the ears timer? Also, you haven't drank water in a while. No one's activated the ears timer, so it's not here. I didn't know that was part of the mechanics of C++. This is why I like Rust. It encourages this type of programming. The const cast can also be undefined behavior, whereas mutable never is. When can const cast be undefined behavior? Have you dabbled in deep learning frameworks? No, I've never done deep learning from like a code side. I've messed around with doing it like image classification stuff with it, like just using the OpenAI API, but like never like self-trained. Are constants real? I'm not answering that question. Unsafe Rust, but yeah, everyone has preferences. I know that like you can do it, I like a language that lets me be grossly unsafe, then break everything, and then fix it. Rust has conditioned me to be paranoid to any sort of undefined behavior. I agree with that. I just think that a lot of this behavior in C++ should be defined because it's used everywhere anyways. Like the fact that like you can use a union to like interpret numbers as like a set of other numbers, like of different byte sizes, that should be defined behavior. Constcast itself is not undefined behavior, but modifying an object that's declared const after const casting it is. Then what's the point? Okay. No, that does make sense, because like the compiler might optimize it to be like inlined. I get it. That makes sense. Okay, I forgive you. I forgive you, C++. So I'm conditioned to please any language by avoiding undefined behavior. That makes sense. So how does the awful engine look so far? I should probably change the title next time. It was a little bit tongue-in-cheek here. Let me actually bring it up. Oh no. What have I done? Why is it broken? What did I do? Oh, because I have these? Really? Undefined behavior? Just define it. A const object might be placed in Read-only memory. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Linker error is my favorite kind of error. Bro, just use Python. Oh my god, get out of my chat. Okay, so this is what it looks like so far. When I say awful, I'm mostly being tongue-in-cheek about, like, there's a bunch of things that I'm not happy with that are happening right now. Like, we've kind of partially fixed it already, but oh no. Oh yeah, that's another awful thing. The GUI rendering is completely borked. That is not good text rendering. But, like, these trees down here are getting cut off at chunk boundaries, and we're trying to fix that right now. Last stream, I fixed the textures of blocks on, like, the side of the wall looking super jank, because this is all greedy meshed, right? Like, that's a single plane there, and it used to be, like, super broken on the side of block faces, and we fixed it last time, which made me happy. Oh shit, okay, we actually got a hydrate. I see how it is. Let me bring it up. Why is it broken? Title checks out, I guess. Yeah. How do you prevent the T-junction edges from cracking? I'll tell you a secret. I don't. No, so basically, currently they do have T-junction seams. It's kind of hard to see on stream probably because there's stream compression, but it happens at some angles. My solution for that is something I haven't implemented yet, but something I actually saw in a Reddit post a long time ago, which I think is shockingly smart and really cool. And basically it's just you run a post-processing pass on the view, like the completed screen plane and the depth buffer, and you search for individual pixels that have much higher depth than the 2 pixels adjacent to it, either horizontally or vertically. And if you find one of those, then you average the color and the depth from the 2 neighboring pixels that aren't extremely, like, way more deep. And that effectively removes the, like, seams in screen space. Which I honestly think is, like, a really good way to do it. That was fucking loud. Like, I like greedy meshing because it, like, greatly decreases the memory footprint of the engine. And the individual pixel seams aren't that significant. It's effective but feels dirty. I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like it's fine. I get it, though. It is, like, a weird hack to fix, like, a problem. But ultimately, if anyone's gonna fix the problem, it should be the GPUs for having stupid floating point inaccuracies. That's my take. That's what I'm campaigning on. Ari for president. I will force GPUs to fix it. Hold on, okay. C++20 introduced bitcast, which lets you avoid type punning via unions. Oh, cool. I should learn that. That's cool. Real programmers prompt ChatGPT until it outputs code that only has a single error. I don't know if, like, people are familiar with my saga with AI and code, but, you know, like, I ended up on the beta test of Copilot when it, like, first was coming out, and I used it for a little while, and, you know, it was nice as, like, a fancy autocomplete, but I never used it for anything deeper. And then eventually, like, people started getting really cagey about, like, the ethics of using AI code and the legalities of it, which I think is very fair, to be clear. Like, I'm not here advocating that AI is necessarily a good thing. And I decided, like, okay, is this thing actually helping me that much, or is it just, like, stopping me from learning how to use, like, keyboard shortcuts in the editor? Because, like, it wasn't generating new code for me. All it was doing was just helping me complete a pattern. Like, if I go to, like, the prop file, you might find this gross. Okay, it is kind of gross, but it's type jank. So I needed to do a bunch of stuff like this, where I was basically, like, keying into an enum at const expression time and defining the type of the value for that key. And, you know, it was helping me a lot with just, like, you know, finishing the pattern by, like, you know, auto-completing the next property that was up here, right? And then I realized, like, okay, I don't really want to use AI for this because I don't want to have, like, a big banner that says that my code was built with AI, which implies that I didn't write it myself. So I'm just gonna go clean that up, redo those parts myself, and then learn how to do actual keyboard shortcuts. And I did, and it's so much better. I know how to do, like, the, like, expansion of selection stuff now, where you press Control D and it, like, selects the next instance of a thing. and I know how Control U undoes a selection, and it is so nice. So I don't know. I mean, like, I guess my take on like Copilot and stuff is kind of nuanced because, well, I don't think that like people should just be building entire products out of AI. I think that like as long as AI is just generating little snippets of code, I don't really think that that's stepping on anyone's toes, or should be. Like, as much as I love coding, and I do think coding is like an art, I don't think little snippets of code are art. Like, if one of you took like a screen's worth of code from Zephyr from one of these streams, I wouldn't care, right? Like, Zephyr is about like 70,000 lines of code. Taking a screen's worth is not, I think, like a meaningful contribution to like copyright. But I don't know, I mean, AI tools seem to be moving more into the generating the entire project anyways, which I'm not a fan of, so it might just be a losing battle to try and use those sorts of things in a way that I don't hate. So I just, for now, I'm sticking fairly far away from it because I don't really want to be involved in that. God, we're so far in, like, the behind. Okay, hold on. Just invent infinitely precise numbers. Yeah. Breaking news, 30% performance tariffs on C++ imports. No, I suggest I would try to expand a face a tiny bit to cover the floating point error range. That causes issues because then the faces overlap and you get Z-fighting. I've tried it before. Friend just built a Voxel engine with a code base you'll love. It's using Python and PyHopenGL. Oh no. I'd be so scared that the LLM messes up autocomplete in a subtle typo kind of way that is only findable after an intense debugging session. I mean, I think, like, even when I was using Copilot, I would let it generate the code and then I'd reformat all of it to fit my naming schemes anyways, which made it pretty easy to spot those bugs, but I know a lot of people don't do that. That's just called fair use. Agreed, right? Like, if the AI is just generating something that genuinely would be like fair use, I don't really care, but I don't think that's how most people use it. Okay, hold on. There's so many things. Speaking of keyboard shortcuts, you inspired me to make a list of shortcuts I would find useful, but then one day VS Code updated and some shortcuts were replaced by Copilot functions. Oh, well, like the Control I and stuff. I've been noticing that, like, you know, it's been really, like, I still have it installed on my computer because sometimes, like, I have to do contracting work and I'm so fucking checked out at this point of doing contracting work. I don't want to be doing it anymore, so I'm like, fine, just do it for me. And, like, I know there's, like, all the Control I combos. Yeah. Control D is great. Reformat of imports and variables becomes so easy. It's really nice. Personally, don't like using AI to generate code, but I do use it to learn things I don't know about. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great learning tool, at least for, like, broaching new topics. Like, it's really difficult to define where you're at with AI because there's so many different things it does right now, but I assume we're probably in a similar spot. Like, I might use it to, like, you know, do a copy-paste op for me, at least in the past. I might do it for, like, stupid web updates on a client site that I haven't touched in 3 years because I just really don't want to look at it. But, like, when it's anything I'm actually passionate about, if I'm gonna be writing code, I want to know A, what it does, and B, how to do it again myself. So, like, my use of AI at that point would be restricted to, like, okay, how do I do this, and why does it work? And now it's time to learn. Find it useful for boilerplate because I don't like typing too much. I mean, that's fair, and boilerplate is a lot, but I feel like usually you can just find, like, templates online from, like, humans that are usually a lot better anyways. Alt F4 is a great way to get rid of bugs on your screen. Why did that... the fuck? I pressed Alt F4 and it just unmaximized it. What? Huh? I'm... confused. Wait, hold on. Alt F4. Why does it do that? What? Oh, okay. I'm so lost. Did you try with an extension? I have one for rewriting shortcuts using another ID. Shortcuts. I can't leave the game, yeah. If you close the game, your brain closes in real life. AI made me learn an entire pipeline so easily compared to Google. That's kind of the thing, like, for learning. it bothers me, because I do feel like AI is more effective than using Google now, but I don't think that's because AI got better. I feel like it's because Google got worse. Like, I swear to God, it was easier to look stuff up on Google, like, a couple years ago. It's just, like, progressively gotten worse and worse and worse. As for the cut-off trees, just add beavers and call it a feature. Oh, hold on. Hi Ari, glad to catch your stream again today. Hey there, Brilliant150. How you doing? I've used AI to generate tables or maps or large dumb switch statements. Yeah, I feel like that's fair game. Putting sudo rms/rf/ in your terminal is a great way of cleaning the bloat from your PC. Thanks, ChatGPT, you're so helpful. She fell for Alt F4 and it didn't work. No, I know what it is. I just didn't care if the game was still open, and then I got really confused when it didn't do what I wanted it to. Like, look, Alt F4. Why does it do that? What is going on? I'm just like, huh? Google used to be so good back in the day, you could find anything in seconds. It feels like it's, like, enshitified real bad. Hold on, is Alt F4 just, like, broken on my machine? Hold on. This is a terrible idea, but let's open my directory here. Alt F4. It doesn't work? Oh, I'm dumb. Yeah, I was pressing F5. Okay. My keyboard does not have labels. Please forgive me for being stupid. Okay. You like my window close effect? Thanks. That is, from Burn My Windows, and it is the TV effect. I really like it. Just subtle style, I don't know. Unorthodox keyboard. Yeah, it's a weird one, but I really like it. I have no idea why Alt F5 unminimizes. I guess that's just a thing. Alright, sure. I wonder if, like, Alt F6 re-maximizes it. No. Oh well. Well, I'm sure that means something somewhere to someone. This is GNOME. Okay, oh my god, I'm so sorry. I've been so distracted chatting, we've barely got anything done. Oh my god, we have, like, 60 plus... Why can't I do math? We've got, 75 viewers right now? Hi, everyone! What the hell are you all doing here watching me talk about nothing? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm glad you're here, but... okay, something that I've noticed that I think is really funny, is, like, sometimes people are like Schrodinger's viewers, and as soon as you point out that there's a lot of viewers, people will start disappearing. Like, it's like people just, like, left the stream on or something, and then they're reminded they're watching it by me being like, why are you here? And they're like, why am I here? I'm procrastinating working on my own Voxel project. It's fun to see people code. Fair enough. I love the goofy Linux thing of showing whatever was behind the window when it was instantiated before rendering. That used to happen on Windows too. I mean, you're right, yeah, it is. It's just a thing mostly because, like, it's like a raw display buffer. That can sometimes be really mean. Like, if you've ever, for example, like, if I open it over here, oh, it did go on the main screen, weird. I've had situations in the past where I've had something on my other monitor, and then I've opened a window, and then it's spawned on that left monitor, snapshotted what's on the screen there, and then teleported over here, and then you've seen, like, my stream, like, dashboard and stuff. So I'm not the biggest fan of that, because it's a little bit like, what if, like, I had, like, passwords or something over there? But, you know, it's just a fact of Vulkan when they're creating the display. I don't know why it does it, but it does. That's diabolical. It is, right? It's like, oh man, well that was information over there, and now it's over here. It's fun to watch people code. It makes me forget that I should be coding. Natural selection for viewers or something. Plain text passwords on your screen while streaming. Okay, it's a little bit hyperbolic, but it could happen. What theme is that? I assume you mean the VS Code theme. It is... AU Mirage Bordered. I believe the plugin is just called AU, and then it comes with a bunch of them, but I'm using Mirage Bordered because Mirage looks a bit weird. But yes, I love this one. And then the font here is Operator Mono, and it's the code font variant, so it has the ligatures, so I can do like boop, 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 and get the 3-wide equals sign. And then the color theme is the default, I think, and then the I'm using Fonted to make the like UI elements also monospaced. It can't be worse than the one-time streamer I watched typed his password in a Twitch chat instead of a login page. You think that's bad? Before I used a password manager and I just had one password for everything, I accidentally, with my screen off, typed my password into the announcements channel of my Discord with like 400 members in it. I had to spend the entire weekend going through like 200 services and creating new passwords. And after that, I decided I was just gonna use a password manager like a normal person. But it was terrible. Can't you hide windows in OBS, or am I remembering incorrectly? I think you can. But like the problem wasn't that like the window, so the issue was that like Zepha would open, and obviously I want that to be rendering. But it would open, and like you see how if I start it here, you see how it starts and it's like it's got like an image of what was behind it. Sometimes it would open starting on a different monitor and then immediately teleport to be centered, which would then copy whatever was on the that left monitor onto the screen here, even if that window was being masked out by OBS. I've mentioned that before. Yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, okay, so. Oh man, I'm so lost at this point. Okay, let's see if we can get a little bit done on this at least before the stream's over. I'm gonna lock in, guys. So we've generated all of the chunk nodes, and then we are afterwards going to cache all of the chunks. So let's go. Actually, this is probably the most effective to do if we go to here, and then after we generate the chunk, which is this whole function. Although, I'm gonna do something terrible here. I'm gonna do something awful. I'm gonna go let chunk is going to be std, or as chunk, hold on, is this a shared pointer? It is, okay, cool. Then we are going to go, chunk is going to be std pointer cast, static pointer, the dynamic pointer cast, chunk, segment. This code will break if I ever get the level of detailed chunk generation back, but that's a problem for not right now. Remember when you'd ask your teacher their life story so the class wouldn't do any work? That's the same vibe here. Yeah, you're just making me ramble. I've typed my password in a Twitch chat of a streamer with 300 viewers and he called me out asking what my message meant. Is it like a sequence of words or something? Okay, so we have our chunk, which actually, that reminds me, if we go over to the map gen, we don't want to be storing just like raw chunks in here. We want these to be S pointers, shared pointers of the chunks, which will also fix the destructor issue, probably. Huh. I wonder why that's not working. Hold on. Why do you hate me? What have I done? Hold on, am I not including... No, I'm including the forward. I have no idea why that wouldn't link. Hold on. It was a common word with a few numbers attached. Old insecure passwords. Yeah, I get that. My original password, which I think I've not used for anything in like a decade, but I'm still not gonna say it out loud just in case, was like my house address followed by the first name of my pet. Because, you know, that's what you get taught to do when you're like 7. But yeah, that one got breached a long time ago. What the fuck? Wait. This retroactively broke that function. Or that there. So if I comment this out... What the fuck? Okay, so wait, if I comment out my unordered map there... Yeah, I know, doxing myself and my guess. So if I comment that out, then it's fine. But as soon as I put this back, which is just the same thing, then it breaks both? That's really strange. What have I done? What's wrong with it? Real tip, add commas and spaces to your password so it'll mess up the CSVs of the hackers. That's nice. That's great. Okay, so what the fuck is going on? This is an unordered map and it's defined here. I don't get it. Wait, hold on. Hash of glmvec3 int has a deleted destructor. So hold on, let's go back to where it broke the second time, which was in dimension. This includes a bunch of stuff. There's a utility function somewhere that defines... There's a GLM import that allows you to make a map with an IVEC3. I have this somewhere. Oh shit, it's 11:33 p.m. Oh no. It is only 2:30 p.m. where I am, so I'm vibing. Where is this? I'm so confused. Huh. So... Huh. I'm confounded. I'm absolutely just like, what the fuck is happening here? Because this is a map of IVEC3 Pragma once user. Why is that bad? I don't care if it's standard. It should be standard. What is going on? So, like... Somehow me doing this in the map generator is breaking everything. You like the keyboard sound? I like these key switches a lot. It's a ZSA Moonlander, and the key switches are Boba U4Ts. I guess these ones aren't. My other keyboard, which sounds identical, has Boba U4Ts. I don't actually know what these ones are, but the keyboard's a ZSA Moonlander. I wish I could make it like slightly quieter for the stream, but you know, the keyboard's right here, and my face is right here, So it's kind of hard to do that properly. I'm so confused why this isn't working. Hold on. Wait. Do I just need to include it? Like... No? What if I use an ordered map? Oh shit, thanks for the raid, Hero Dev. Okay, wait, what? An ordered map worked? Okay, fine. We're gonna use an ordered map, I don't care. I'll figure out why that has to be ordered later. I refuse to stream with my blue keyboard for that reason, yeah. Do I have a GitHub? I do. It is at Aurelius, spelled the same as the YouTube link on the over there. But it doesn't have this project on it. Unfortunately, this is closed source because I want to try and like make money off of the project, which is sad. We had a like 30-minute discussion earlier this stream about why I hate the fact that I need to sell this game. If you're interested in rewatching, but I'm not going to get into it again. Oh shit. Thank you for the sub gifts, Zeth. 2 tier 1 sub gifts. Hell yeah. Wow, you've gifted 44 subs. Oh my god. That's a lot. Okay, we finally got the map working, so now we're gonna go chunk dot... Or we're gonna go, map gen. I guess this... Is this static? No. So I should be able to go this chunk cache dot in place. Okay, and then we're going to in place chunk dot position and then chunk. And now this is kind of weird. No, because this is a pointer, so we do need to clone it, which means we need to go make shared chunk. Cool, and I guess to make this simpler, let's go clone, and we're gonna go let clone is going to be equal to that. Then we're going to go this chunk cache lock dot lock right, and we're gonna go let lock is equal to that, and then lock dot. I think that's all we need to do. So that should do the job. I guess I'll put the clone cost there. It doesn't make a difference, but yeah. Oh, hydrate, thank you. So that should start storing every chunk that's ever been generated. Which, if you think about that for a moment, you might realize that's a terrible idea. Because that's going to create a bunch of memory usage. Like, let's go to htop. And let's filter by Zephyr. Oh. Huh. Oh, because this needs to be a reference, so do that. Which I guess means I can simplify... No move iterator, hold on. This exists right here. What's your damage? Oh, hold on. I think that is the trick. Which means I should probably do that, and that's not working. Okay, so it's struggling again with like this map isn't working, and I have no idea what's going on. Like, it's... Because, like, I have a UMap of IVEC3 and Light Chunk, like, here, right? And it works fine. that exists in here. That exists in here. There is a lot of places where I have static maps of like this is not getting compiled, so why is it not understanding that this is like valid code? I feel like I'm gonna learn later that I've just done something entirely inane and stupid. Cause like, I'm at a loss for what's going on. I mean, let's try maybe like just clearing the cache. Let's go cmake, delete cache and reconfigure, cmake clean rebuild. This is gonna take a long ass time, but hopefully it will realize that this is valid code. Does anyone smarter than me at C++ here know why this is not working? Because yeah, I really got nothing. But we're almost built, so maybe, oh. Huh. Okay, so it was the same bug. I don't get it. Hold on. GLM, IVec3, compare. Vector relational functions. GLM IVec3 as map key. Maybe you have to initialize it in the constructor. It shouldn't, no, it's... Because I do this same thing here, and it's erroring now, but it wasn't before. Gemini probably knows. Alright, are we gonna fall back to AI for this? Fine. Let's go. Why is this... Hold on. We'll see what happens. I do not believe it's gonna answer this question. How do I even open it? Alright. Why is this error occurring? I don't think it's gonna work. Okay, it doesn't even know what the error is. Boop, 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 boop. Here. Here you go. I hate using AI for debugging. I hate it so much. See, I do have that. Like, it's somewhere, and that's what's weirding me out. Where did Mr. AI go? I lost it. I know this exists in my code, I just don't know where it is. Traits? No, it's not gonna be in here. Types. No. Util? It's too late for me, can no longer read error messages without AI. Unknown type... I think I get it. No, wait, hold on. Wait, no. Where was that? Tuple sub. That should fix that. But that's irrelevant. That has nothing to do with anything. Huh. Yeah, it's so nonsensical that this isn't working, specifically now. Like, what if I do, like, unordered map? I don't use my alias. I guess, sure, let's try to initialize it in the constructor. I don't know why that would matter, but sure. Holy shit, no! You thought something. What? C++ compiler is finally done. Finally done taking crap from Ari after all these years. Huh. Yeah, I'm so... like, what the fuck is happening? Okay. Okay. I don't know, guys. I might have to, like... I might have to figure this out another time. I don't really want to, like, leave everyone hanging here while I figure out what the hell's going on with the compiler. And it's also been about 3 hours. So I think I will probably close out for now. I know it's kind of an abrupt end. I would have liked to have made more progress on this, but I genuinely have no idea what's going on, and I'm apparently gonna have to do some deep research for this. So yeah, I think I'm gonna close things out for today. Yeah, I mean, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them to me quickly. I'll stick around for a few minutes. Otherwise, you know, I have a YouTube channel and other stuff over there. I have a Discord server. I chat about code on it, if you know, people wanted to say hi. But yeah, you know, other than that, I mean, I guess I'll throw the links in chat. Here's my, like, YouTube for the people in Twitch. And here's my Twitch for the people in YouTube. And here's my Discord for everybody. We have fun there. We chat about things. Oh, that didn't work. Hold on. I broke it. Ah. Yeah. Alright, guys. Well, thank you all so much for stopping in. And yeah, I stream every Sunday at noon till roughly about 3 p.m. PST. If you indeed wrote a hash for Bec 3, it probably means it's not included in the scope. See, that's what I thought, but, like, I'm not seeing it anywhere. Like... And that's really weird. My thing is, like, I'm pretty sure GLM actually defines it. But yeah, I'm gonna have to dig deep into the code, and, like, I'm not quite sure what's going on. So, you know, I think I'd rather just, like, dig into that slowly on my own time than worrying about, like, being not engaging for the stream. So, also, you know, I need lunch. I'm really hungry. So yeah. Thank you all so much for showing up. I'll be back next week. Alright, see y'all!